My name's James Buckwell. I was attached to the church when I was baptized at a couple months old. And that was 85 years ago. And so I've been a member since I was 14. And so that's a long time ago.
Did you come up with any stories to tell?
About the merger itself? No, not too many stories about that. It was pretty cut and dry. I mean, everybody was happy. South Church was gone from 2,000 members to 1,000, roughly, at that time. And it made sense. It made sense to have them. The ABC is so close to the UCC, there's not a heck of a lot of difference. I remember, I'm sure I was on the council then. I was not, Charlie Kinney was the moderator. And he was very active with that whole thing. So anyway, it just made sense. The whole thing made sense. A lot of us were already friendly and from other things. And so it went surprisingly easily. I remember the meeting where we all got together. I don't think there was a negative vote. I mean, you probably have the records, but I don't think there was a negative vote. I don't even remember an abstention. Hugh was strong, and he was at the height of his strength then, and he was all for it. So that really was that was the necessary thing. As long as he was for it, there was no real reason not to be for it. And so it made sense. It gave us some active people, a lot of active people. And the church was definitely stronger afterwards. But it was fun meeting new people, getting together, realigning boards and all that kind of stuff, which had to go on. But that was all quite smooth. What I remember most about that, though, happened a little later when I was moderator, and the Baptist moderator was JB. And I got to tell you, now, I had always known him because of college, but I got to really know him when we were moderator. And so one day after the meeting, he said, Jim, we got to discuss this. Some of these people need to have their heads examined. And so I said, okay. He said, what do you say we go out to the west side and have a beer? So that became fairly routine. But I got to be great friends with JB, and that was a real treat. The most important thing was it was so easy. It wasn't hard at all. It seemed natural. The hardest thing was finding Bert the right office. That was so. Once that got straight away, everything, and there was almost no friction. I'm sure between Bert and Hugh there might have been because, but they seemed to work it out very well. And Alan was there too. I mean, that was a powerhouse of ministers. Very, very strong guys, three of them.
So were there any other key players in this?
Oh, sure. The guy from the First Baptist, I always thought he was a member of South Church anyway, but so he and Charlie Kinney were the guys that really ramrodded, or didn't ramrod it, but pushed it through. And it just was so logical that it just if they were willing to leave their building and to come and join us, we were very definitely willing to have them, and that we could be partners. And I'm kind of surprised that we don't have one name. Like South Church is what it ought to be. And then underneath it, it could say UCC ABC. Never mind South Congregational First Baptist Church. That's a little long in the tooth, long in the tongue and the tooth.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Everybody calls it South Church anyway.
So you said you had memories of the day of the parade.
Oh, yeah. It was, well, a lot of us went up to the service and then came back to the church. And a lot of us walked down with the Baptists. But I was chairman of something or something, but I was not moderator, because I know that was Charlie Kinney. And it was a good day. There was a good service. Bert was on top of his game, and then he took the lead, and he just strode off down West Main Street and strode down Main Street. The view of him, I was on the steps, I think, of the church, the front steps, and the view of him leading the bunch, carrying the big golden cross, walking down Main Street was, I'll never forget it. I don't know what else to say. And then we went in and had a service, joint service, short, and had lunch. I'm assuming we always had lunch. If we could, for any reason, we would always do. So everybody. I remember meetings beforehand. There was questions about, the only question there really was there any serious difference between dunking and sprinkling? And so, then there's the famous story, about the tenor who you know that story? Yeah, he walked right into the pool, and the thing came splashing down. He took off, went home. He lived up in Enfield too, I think, and he had a great voice. But anyhow, he came back in the middle of the service, and with his robe on, and the choir just broke up. So our softball team got better.
So there was a softball team.
Oh, we used to play against First Baptist. There was a softball, there was the kids' basketball. Oh, there was all kinds of athletics.
There used to be musicals.
Musicals, yes. And that was inspired more by the two people from the Baptist church. That was Mike and Dina. Mike and Dina. And they had kids that were talented. And there were several kids in South Church who were talented, and they really worked out. They did some big time plays, Fiddler on the Roof, and let's see. They know a dark, secluded place, a place where no one knows your face. Hernando's Highway.
Yep.
That was, David was, I remember, there was a dancer in that. Donald was Earthquake McGoon and Little Abner. And then he was, not Teviot, but one of the important characters in Fiddler. And of course, Chris was always the star. Chris Mansfield was always the star because he was good. The Crooks girls were in it. Klein girls were in it. There were a lot of kids in those days. And, it was pretty professional. It was amazingly good. They got into it. All the kids, they really got into it. So that was better than softball. And the stage was worked out well, and it got used for what it was meant to be. And I can remember when the stage was in what is now the parlor. When I was a kid.
Really?
Oh yeah, we used to have dances in there.
The choir room was the stage, right?
Yeah, the choir room was the stage, and if you still see the holes where there was projectors, we used to show movies there occasionally.
Yeah.
That's what there's a projection booth still up there. You go in and go from the choir room coming out in and look out and up. I think they never totally finished that off because I thought someday they might want to use it.
Okay, my name is Herb Carlson Jr. I've been a member of South Church since the late winter of 1968. The reason I became a South Church member is the person who had agreed that we should get married was a South Church person already, and so that was the end. That was the end of the discussion.
Okay. So who are the people who made this merger actually happen?
Well, the people who were, I think, most cause of that were the pastors of the two organizations, churches that were going to merge. And that's Reverend C. Burgess Crooks Jr. Of the First Baptist Church, and the Reverend Hugh Penny, who was the pastor of the South Congregational Church. At the time, I'd been a member for about 5 years when it started to happen, and so I was not in on the deal making. What I did find is because the actual merger became effective on Sunday, September 15th, 1974, which happens to be my 32nd birthday.
Happy birthday.
But it gave it a little edge to it of having the final service up at West Main and High, and then having a procession from that physical church down here. I found last week in the archives a copy of the order of service at the First Baptist Church at 10 o'clock in the morning on September 15th, 1974. And if I can read that, I'm going to read it regardless.
Okay. Go ahead.
It said right at the beginning, "This is a final service of worship in the First Baptist Church, celebrating the coming together of the congregations of South Church and First Baptist Church." And the persons who were participants, that is, they had something to do, not just attended, although it was pretty well attended. The participants were Richard Coffey, Norman Campbell, who was the moderator of the Baptist Church, Reverend Haywood Foreman, who was a retired minister, immediately retired minister of the Baptist Church, his daughter, Adina Mansfield, who was the minister of music, at that time. The Reverend Hugh Penny, who was the pastor of the South Congregational Church, Reverend Mark Rohrbaugh, who was head of New BRAC, New Britain Area Conference of Churches, who was actually a personal friend of mine. I used to play racquetball with him at the Y. Reverend Curtis Hoffman, who had been a pastor at First Baptist. Reverend C. Burtis Crooks, who was the pastor at the Baptist Church. Dr. Orlando Tibbetts, who was the conference minister at the Baptist Church. Reverend August Werner, who was an associate pastor at South Church, and Mr. Charles Kenny, who I think was a professor at Central, was the moderator of the South Congregational Church, and they were all active participants that day. A name that's been omitted, I think probably because he wasn't there, was Reverend Alan McLean, who was a pastor, assistant pastor also at South Church. I just think that he may not have been able to go to be present that day, or he may have started a new job.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. His daughter was the acolyte at the service, so it wasn't like they just disappeared,
Yeah.
or something
Sure.
like that.
So what are your fondest memories of this merger as on that day and then being here in church? What are your most fondest memories of the...
Well, the fondest memory, if I am allowed to put it in the greater scope, I believe that the way we all worked together to make this thing work, and there wasn't anything like, gee, we have more money than you do, or we have more members than you do, or we know how to do things better the Baptist way in comparison to the Congregational way, or vice versa. There was nothing like that. We were to work as well as we could, and I think we did a really good job. Additionally, there were some times when there was some difficulty. I can't anymore remember what they were, so they must not have been too important.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
But there were some.
Sure.
It wasn't like a marriage or anything like that that's 100% perfect, because those don't exist. I was a new member of South Church, so I was making my way, so to speak, with the Congregationalists too. I don't think I would have been any further along in being helpful or that sort of thing. But I am saying that I believe that there were so many really quality members of the First Baptist Church that I felt real lucky, if we decided that this was something that we needed to do, that we sure picked the right people to do it with. And there were a lot of downtown churches, but over time, being the leader, in effect, of a merger downtown, staying downtown, was the right thing to do, because some of the other churches, and I'm not naming any names, they don't exist. They either don't exist anymore, or they have 5% of the people that they had 40 years ago. And so we met a lot of people, and I met a lot of people on the way along, because I did hold a number of positions.
Sure.
So just one that I'd like to pick out particularly, if I may.
Sure.
There was a husband and wife, and the wife's sister, who was a widow. And so as I'm getting older, I have a little bit of trouble. Einard and Marguerite Schultz and Marjorie Cameron, they're Baptists.
Yep.
And they were here every Sunday. We got to know them pretty well. Einard and I had the same job, kind of, and that could help you to know that we just didn't get together and immediately. So from 1979 to 1984, Einard was the Baptist senior deacon.
Okay.
And from 1979 to 1984, I was the UCC senior deacon. It's done different. Being a senior deacon is not like it is now. And I'm not suggesting what might be better, but we were here almost every Sunday. And every Sunday, at least one of us was here to do the job of a senior deacon. We continued to be friends, and of course, those three people are deceased, but we have flowers, Easter and Christmas, for them, because we remember them and how important people they were to others.
In the life of the church, too.
Yeah.
So thank you, Herb. I so appreciate your memories here. You're a gem. You will be remembered well for the things that you have done for South Church and First Baptist churches. It's wonderful to have you here.
I tried to contribute what I could.
Yes. All right. Thanks a lot, Herb.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Good morning. I'm Jean Esselink, and I'm a member of South Church, and I have been for over 50 years, and it has been a joy.
So what was your memory of that particular day?
I remember the joy surrounding that day and the wonderful optimism of, we didn't know what was to come, but there was terrific optimism. I do remember that.
What is the most fondest memory you have of the beginning
The fondest memories are what followed.
Okay.
The seeds that were planted, that grew, that came, and what followed because of this.
All right. You had mentioned earlier that you remember the children's theater that was here.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Mike and Dina Mansfield were indeed treasures that came to this church. And shortly after they came, they started a youth group which gave a musical every spring. And I was privileged to accompany that for many years. It was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for the youth of South Church and their families. They met Friday nights and Saturdays, and such a bond was created over the years. And over the years, they brought friends from high school, and families got involved making props and costumes and scenery, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful growing experience for all of us. At the time of the performance, the women of the South Church got together and prepared and put on a dinner, which was amazing. So we had a real dinner theater experience in Cooper Hall.
Oh, that's great.
It was.
That's great.
The first production was Charlie Brown, and it set the stage for such fun and adventure and camaraderie for years to come. Oliver, West Side Story, The King and I were some of the others that followed.
Oh, that's marvelous. That's marvelous for the church. And also, there was one thing, Mission Mart. I know the late Lil Beach was involved with that.
Yes. Lil Beach, I don't know the timeline, but she definitely took charge with a very hard-working committee. And it was a wonderful place to go, and it was a place you could stop in after church on Sundays. It was always warm and friendly, and it had lovely gifts, and it supported thousands of people in this country and around the world. It was a wonderful mission. It was a room on the second floor. It was bright and sunny, and you could have good conversation and as well as get gifts. I thought that was a wonderful outgrowth of this.
That's great. Thank you. And one just last question for you, and this is probably will come from the top of your head.
Yeah.
Where do you think the church is heading for with this merger? Where do you think our future lies?
You mean right now?
Yeah, where do you think we're heading? What does our future look like?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I think we have to have faith, trust in God, and pray a lot, and ask for guidance. I really do. We certainly didn't know what was ahead when we took the bold step many years ago, but such blessings followed, such blessings. So I could only hope for that for the future.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to say hello to Sue Drobinski. She was part of the First Baptist Church before it joined South Church, and then obviously as South Church. Sue, what was your first memory of joining into this sanctuary with First Baptist?
So the joining of the two churches. I remember the walk.
Oh, okay.
I remember leaving the First Baptist Church sanctuary for the last time, walking down West Main Street, turning onto Main Street with little Kyle Mansfield holding the flag at the front of the procession.
Wow.
Getting to the church and seeing what was soon to be my future sister-in-law's church, Trinity Methodist, standing there clapping for us as we all joined and walked into the South Church sanctuary. So it connected, in my head, the three churches.
Yes.
That they all became part of the Christian community in the city of New Britain. And we were all there for each other.
Oh. So that must have been an exhilarating feeling to come down and turn the corner and see the folks from Trinity Church and then South Church, and you're coming in. That must have been
It
a
was.
remarkable moment for you.
It was, because I was leaving what had been my entire social life as a child. I started at First Baptist Church in kindergarten.
Wow.
And was baptized at the age of 12 in the church, the full baptism, get dunked kind of thing. And my only social interaction was through BYF, Baptist Youth Fellowship, and the connection to the Mansfield family, who we had Mike and Adina. Mike was one of our youth directors. Adina was one of the music directors, who also was my piano teacher and my vocal coach. And through her encouragement, I went to the same university that Mike and Dina had gone to, and became a music teacher because of Adina.
Wow.
And ended up working in East Hampton, where Mike just happened to work.
Small world.
It was a very small world.
Small world.
But that family was part of my entire existence as a child. And I was also one of the last people to get married at First Baptist Church. My husband and I were married on June 15th, 1974. And the merger was in that September in 74. So it's been 50 years.
50
I was
years.
22 years old.
Wow. Yeah, so you were married in the old facility.
I was.
And then it joined here with South Church. So you remember that old facility.
I think I knew every nook and cranny.
How do you think the congregation that was here, that saw the people walking down the aisle, how do you think they were experiencing this merger? What was your sense as you were walking down?
Well, I was a kid. I was 22 years old, so I'm not sure I've thought about that a lot.
Yep.
But as the years have gone by, I've seen my mom
Yep.
had made a very interesting observation. She was very involved in the city and in the industrial aspects of the city. And she said South Church was the home of the industrialists.
Yes.
You had a lot of very, very important people that were here at this church. First Baptist was the home of the workers. So I think it brought two different perspectives together when the two churches joined. And I'm hoping it may have influenced the way that the combined churches reached out to the community. When I look at what the church does now,
Yes.
and how amazing they are in serving the direct needs of the community, it just makes me feel good.
That's
It makes
great.
me feel like they're doing what Christians should do.
But that's a very interesting perspective when you say the home of the industrialists and the home of the workers. And they came together and became South Church, but it still has the First Baptist South Congregational Church title. But to see the community working together, we became one community, it seems like, is what you're saying.
It seems to be. And right now, it doesn't seem like there's a difference.
Yep.
It's, nobody goes up and say, are you Baptist or are you Congregational? We're just here.
We're here.
We're just here.
And
And
that's-
maybe it took 50 years to get to that point, but we're here and we're one. And that's what's important.
Exactly. Your mom was Paulette Kellerstedt.
Was Paulette, yes.
She was one of the pillars here.
She was.
She was a remarkable lady. She was a treasurer here also, and she also was part of Mission Mart that
Yes.
was mentioned by earlier. How did she come about becoming a member of Mission Mart or starting Mission Mart with Lil?
Okay, well, the Beach family was very active at First Baptist. Their daughter Laurel was my best friend. Lil did not drive, and we lived in the same part of town, so whenever Lil had to go somewhere, my mom drove her. So Mom became Lil's partner in just about everything Lil did, because if Lil had to get there, Mom had to drive her there.
Yes.
So she became very active in the Mission Mart, and Lil was a very, very great thinker and
Yes.
planner, but Mom was the organizer and the making sure it gets done person. And they were a good team together.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. I remember Lil, and I definitely remember Paulette. They were quite the team, I should say.
They were. They were
quite the team.
till the day she died. They were a
Yes,
team.
They were a team. And thank you for those wonderful memories. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for coming by.
Thanks.
Well, good afternoon, and could you state your name and how you are connected to South Church?
Well, hello, everyone. This is a great honor to be part of this 50th anniversary celebration at what is officially South Congregational First Baptist Church. I'm Richard Coffey. I was I had so many titles, but I was the minister of music, basically, for 45 years at South Church, and that was beginning in 1972 and concluding in 2017. And here I am again.
Well, we're here to talk about the merger of the churches. So the first question, who were the people that made the merger happen?
Well, that's quite the quiz, and it's a very good question, and I do have an answer. The list of people would be long because there was a great investment by the leadership of both congregations, from South Church, from South Church, I think specifically of Jim Buckwell, Herb Carlson, Dr. Charles Kinney, who at the time was president of Naugatuck Valley Community College, and Harry Macedorian. From First Baptist, certainly at that time, Norman Campbell, who was also a chancel choir member and strong voice in the merger, and was a big supporter of the open and affirming successful effort. Also, the sisters Eleanor and Louise Hess, very, very informed and engaged and involved. They were both also members of the choir. And Paulette Kellerstedt, thinking back over that period. But the overwhelming driving force and motivator was the Reverend Hugh Penny, who was passionate about the benefits of the merger and labored fervently for its passage. In case somebody is hearing this and they don't know who that is, that was the pastor of South Church at that time. He came there, I think, in 1964. The big success came because he ensured that the First Baptist congregation, much smaller than that of South Church at the time, was fully represented every step of the way in the planning as well as in the implementation of the endeavor. The end.
What is a memory that you have of the day that the two churches joined?
There were two extraordinary events in my mind in September 1974. The first being the final service held at the First Baptist building up on West Main Street with the two congregations and a combined adult choir and a children's choir. And while this was powerful and poignant for many, several of the First Baptist members later told me, but it was the Sunday before when we shed our tears, as it would be the last time we would be together on our own. Very powerful. So that day's subsequent farewell service, on the week before the march, that was with both congregations at that address that I named across the street from the library, and that included the choir, the combined choir singing the Vaughan Williams setting of Old Hundredth, which included the congregation, and that piece has been sung at every subsequent decadal celebration of the church. That is, every 10 years. Maybe it's called decadal. The service concluded, that service, with a procession from First Baptist Church to South Church, led by Bert Crooks, the First Baptist pastor, carrying the altar cross and Hugh Penny, the Bible. The large choir followed. My role was to scurry from First Baptist Church by car to get to the South Church in time to play the tower chimes as the procession approached. And once at the front door, everyone paused for a prayer, stayed outside. There was singing of a hymn, and I believe it was Rejoice Ye Pure in Heart. I was playing full blast on the organ, and windows and doors were open, so to see if that would help. And then Eleanor Hess, whom I named earlier, was playing the hymn on a piano, which had been rolled into the narthex for that purpose. And so we all sang on the front yard there, the plaza, and the service ended there. We did not enter the building on that day. I mean, into the sanctuary proper. The service ended there, but then there was a big time reception for everybody on that day. The second of the two dates, events, the following Sunday in 1974. That was the first time the combined congregations were in the South Church building. It was glorious. The combined choir totaled about 48, maybe 50 singers. And the opening hymn was "The Church is One Foundation." And you might think of anything more appropriate than that. The choir's opening procession was beautiful with its two colored robes. The Baptists were in red and the Congregationists were in blue. The chief choral component that day was the seat of Hubert Parry's "I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord," Psalm 122. This extraordinary anthem was sung at all subsequent 10-year celebrations. Each such service included, we're talking about 84, 94, 04, you got it. Each service included an invitation to every prior choir member to return and participate. They could, sometimes swelling the chancel to 70 or more singers. And the morning began with a very lavish, substantial choir brunch, and I'm sure that's what helped bring them there. All past and current section leaders were invited, even ones that sang before me. And while there were no stipends paid to those singer alumni each year, that is, in the decades, following the service, I hosted a section leader champagne brunch at my home, and perhaps this helped persuade some of them to participate, as there were sometimes as many as 20 section leaders singing on these anniversary celebrations. The end.
So what made this merger work so well?
All right. You did some good questions there. The success was possible, I think, because everything was done in an orderly and dignified manner with no sense of pressure or anxiety. Certainly the agreement of Burtis Crooks, First Baptist pastor, and Hugh Penny, South Church pastor, to make it work was at the top of the list. That agreement to merge followed a period in which First Baptist leadership explored other merger options in the city and beyond, including First Congregational Church and Bethany Covenant Church, both of whom were courting First Baptist quite fervently. They wanted them. So it was after a great degree of lobbying by South Church, and particularly Hugh Penny, that First Baptist voted for the merger. Prior to the votes of both congregations, a whole year or more of meetings took place among the leadership of both churches on a per committee basis. That is missions and outreach from both churches, worship and music from both churches, finance from both churches, monthly meetings to pave the way. And this helped enormously in ensuring that the merger machinery was well oiled by the time September 1974 rolled around. The end.
Next question. How has this merger shaped and changed our congregation?
Well, that would be a very subjective, that's a good question. It'd be a very subjective answer, of course. And every person who speaks with you would have an answer, and everybody in the whole church would probably have a different answer. But I would say without a doubt, the merger was one of the most significant energy producing enterprises of both congregations over their entire histories. First Baptist was relieved of the financial strain of maintaining a large underused building. And virtually overnight, South Congregation, its congregation, South Church, was augmented by 300 new members. We came to work on Monday and we had 300 more members than we had on Sunday. The merged choir totaled 50 singers. Few churches can lay claim to such an extraordinary infusion of talent, goodwill, and common cause. This marriage has survived some occasional turbulent times, but always has emerged sounder and stronger. The end.
And so what are some of your fondest memories?
Well, this could go on forever, so I'm so glad to know that that Stephen will be editing this interview. Stephen, by the way, let me just thank you in front of everybody for hosting this seminar and including me. Most, if not all, of the memories that I have can be found in a book that I wrote on sabbatical in 2007, 2008. It's called A Service of Song: The Musical Legacy of South Congregational First Baptist Church. There's a lot in there, but I'll hit 4 and let it go. In 1974, the same year as the merger, there was the founding of Concora. I'm speaking here for the music program. That's Connecticut Choral Artists. It was at that time called the South Church Choral Society. But that was established as the region's first all-professional concert choir under the umbrella of the Music Series of South Church, which had been established itself in 1972, 1973, the year that I arrived. And that was done initially in celebration of the then brand new Cooper Memorial Gress Miles organ, which was and remains the largest in the city. Another milestone, from my point of view, is the replacement of, in the Irwin Chapel, the replacement of an electronic organ, Allen organ, that had been in there since the mid-50s, I think, when it was finally made to look like a chapel. It used to be an assembly hall. And so in 1979, that instrument finally gave way, they usually do. So in 1979, there was a miniature version of the chancel's pipe organ developed and installed in the balcony of Irwin Chapel. Actually, we had to make a balcony to put it in there. That meant that both of the church's organs were by the Gress Miles Organ Company, Princeton, New Jersey. And the donor of that organ was Esther Stanley. We did a huge celebration of that occasion, concert series, a service of dedication, standing room only. And that organ, unless I'm wrong, is still serving that chapel very, very, very well. It's also air conditioned, and that makes a big difference in the summer. When we moved from the main church to the Irwin Chapel, when the air conditioning was put in, attendance doubled. The third thing, and then 2 to go, was the establishment. This was from the Baptist position most of all. The establishing of a large and successful youth-oriented dance and drama ministry. The Mansfields were in charge of that. Kay Friday also was in charge, particularly with First Baptist leadership, though, and with very, very polished and exciting dinner theater presentations in Cooper Hall, which, by the way, acquired its name in 1980 after a capital campaign that was called 80 and 80. We're trying to raise $80,000 in the year 1980. It included the complete refurbishing of Cooper Hall. Now it's been done again. It included the handicap ramp, which is still in full use, and also major renovation of what became Hart Hall. The parish hall became Hart Hall because the Hart Fund supported that campaign so generously. So that's a little plug for the campaigns and also for the children youth program, which was really phenomenal. And then finally, a bit of humor here, if you don't mind. Shortly after the merger, an immersion baptistry was installed in the chancel under what might be called the high altar against the rear wall. that's all pulled out. The baptistry is revealed when the ordinance of baptism is observed. In 1978, a tenor soloist and section leader, his name was R. Leslie Childs, arrived late for the warm-up on a baptismal Sunday. That was his first mistake, was arriving late. So he rushed in, already had his robe on, and did not see that the baptistry was opened, lighted, and filled with water, prepared for the baptism that was just to begin. The choir was seated in place for the warm-up. Well, when he hit the water, the splash was enormous, and water spilled throughout the chancel into the nave. He was a big guy. Women of the choir had their purses on the floor, and they just grabbed their purses because the water was flowing. It's like a tidal wave out through the chancel. Well, I was standing right there watching this unfold, like he's seeing a train go off a trestle, but nobody could do anything. It was just like a swan dive and the robe picked up air, and so it looked like a balloon floating, and floating there. And I thought he didn't move, and I thought this is terrible. And we were paralyzed for several seconds, but suddenly he stood up, put his feet at the bottom of that fiberglass structure, and dripping with water, looked up and said, "Good morning, everyone." That was an epic, traumatic moment for everyone. And later in the sermon of the day, there was reference to call. The pastor said that we all have a need for a second baptism. Well, Les Childs had his second baptism that day. I have one other little memory. Well, this is my choir mascot. Now that robe it doesn't look green because I have a terrible camera here, but that is green. That is South Church green. And it looks like little Laura Fernandez. But this is cassock and cotta, my favorite robes of all the 4 sets of robes we bought while I was there. And I don't know who gave me this doll, but I certainly treasure it. And I love still seeing pictures of the choir online these days in their cassocks and cottas. Pastor George Harris used to call them the choir had their smocks on, and that's not a bad term for them. So those are my 4 specific memories that I'll speak to today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking with Carolyn Tibbetts, who's been a longtime member of South Church. Welcome, Carolyn. You were part of, in some way or another, part of the actual ceremony as people processed in to the church. Tell me a little bit about that, what you remember of it.
At that time, I was a member of the chancel choir at South Church, and so my connections really were musical.
Okay.
And it was so exciting that we were going to double the choir. We had 2 principal ministers. Everything was being doubled.
Yes.
And it was very exciting, especially by the choir, because we were growing by leaps and bounds overnight. And we met wonderful people from the Baptist choir. Many of them I'm still in contact with, and they just fit right in.
That's great.
And through the love of music, actually, because that's why we were there. We were choir members. That grew over the years. But at that time, our sole connection was musical.
Do you remember the procession in to the church?
I have to say I don't remember the procession in.
Okay.
Because we started at First Baptist.
All right.
So it was on West Main Street. And we had all assembled there. And the first half of the Sunday morning service was at First Baptist Church. It was not here at this church.
Oh, I did not know that.
And we started the service at First Baptist, and at one point we got ready to go. we were asked to pick up more than one hymn book if we could, because that was a way to get the Baptist hymnals to South Church. And then we started the procession down the street that you've heard about, and it was exhilarating. It was very exciting, but I can't help but wonder how the Baptists felt. They were leaving their home church.
Yeah.
And we were very excited, but I wonder what their emotions were, knowing that they were leaving their home. But we processed down the street. We came to the intersection of Main Street, and when we turned the corner, there were police cars there stopping the traffic so that we could process. Main Street was closed because of us. And that in itself was astounding to me. And when we turned the corner, you could then see South Church, and there were people watching, not just those that were processing. And I know that it was mentioned, but I do remember when we got close to South Church, the Trinity Methodist across the street had all come out from their service, and they were standing on the sidewalk, which we didn't know was going to happen. And they started applauding.
Nice.
And the feeling that we were being welcomed back, we were coming back to our home church, we were bringing another congregation with us, and the church across the street, another denomination, was cheering for us. And that I will never forget. It was very moving. And we ended the service at South Church because we had begun at First Baptist. We ended here, new home for the Baptists, and our way of welcoming them into our church and congregation.
Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate those memories.
You're welcome.
Hello, I'm talking to Linda Nowak, who was here back in 1974.
Yes.
And some of your memories, you say you don't remember a whole lot, but you do remember a whole lot in a sense of what actually happened on that day. You were a member of the choir,
Yes,
at
I
that
was a
point?
soprano in South Church Choir.
Okay. And now, do you remember processing in?
I remember coming through the streets.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't remember which door. We probably walked in that door over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
I didn't really understand why we were doing that. I felt it was for monetary reasons, and their congregation was smaller, and it was hard to keep up a church.
Yep.
So I thought that was a good idea.
Okay.
Because it helped both congregations. But other than that, I didn't understand much. And as far as the people, I didn't differentiate whether they were from either church. And it was so long ago that I just remember they were all from the same church.
Okay.
So
That, how does that reflect on to today? Can you tell the differences between the different?
no, only if I'm reminded.
Okay.
I didn't know that you were from that church, for instance.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's, so joining as a community of believers, do you think that was the goal?
It's the heart and soul of Christianity. Because we are all one church as far as I'm concerned. And if more churches could do this and more churches could join us, I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah. So how do you think it has changed our congregation?
Having more people helped us survive longer in this day and age of shrinking congregations. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It brought me people that I had never known before.
Okay.
And I was very happy to know some of the people
Oh, that's
that
great.
came over, the ones that I saw.
How did it feel to sing with a whole group of new people coming in?
I don't even remember that they doubled the that they doubled the choir. I always felt just fine singing. So
Okay. All right.
the more the merrier.
The more the merrier. Do you have any real fond memories of that day? Beside, I know you were 22 at that point.
24.
24, okay.
I came here when I was 22 in 1972, and the churches joined in 74.
Okay.
So
Do you have any fond memories or any memories of just maybe that day, how people responded? I know you
No.
were in the choir.
I don't have any memories of how I felt or anything that was special to me because I really didn't understand what was going on.
Okay.
So,
Okay. But you, from what I sense now, you're happy it happened.
oh yes,
Yes,
Of course.
absolutely. Of course. All right. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it.
okay.
What do you remember about the merger of South Church and First Baptist Church?
What I remember is beforehand there seemed to me to be a lot of animosity. Directed at combining two churches. And little by little it worked itself out, and I'm just happy that we did it.
Do you remember the day of the merger?
No, 1974.
Yeah. Do you remember the walk?
Yep.
Okay.
I remember the walk from Baptist Church down to South Church. My mother and aunt were both alive at the time, and we had a good time walking down.
Nice. Any other thoughts about the merger or what's happened since then? How that's helped us?
What happened since then, Beth, is so much has happened. But I do know there was a lot of controversy because who wants to lose their own church?
True.
I try to think of it in terms of having to give up First Church and join South. I mean, that would be just grim. So I wish I could tell you something more colorful.
I was very young when the merger took place, and I don't have any memories of the actual day of the merger. I do have a lot of memories of what came after the merger, and the thing that I remember most as a child was that the merger for me meant lots of new friends. There were young people who came to South Church from First Baptist, and there was an infusion of energy and opportunities. There were lots of adults who cared about us and provided opportunities for us, and lots of new friends. I think in hindsight, that's one thing that South Church has meant for me throughout my life and throughout these 50 years. The importance of the connections that we make with people in the church that have long lasting impacts on our lives. And the connection that our church has with the community that has great impacts on the community. And so the last 50 years have been great, and I'm really looking forward to the next 50 years to see what community that brings in the church and in all of New Britain.
It was wonderful to capture these memories of folks who were here 50 years ago when First Baptist Church and South Congregational Church began their journey as one congregation, worshiping and serving God together. It was a courageous decision. And as we heard from some who spoke here, it was carefully planned and carried out in order to honor the traditions and histories of each congregation. I'm sure that it was painful at times. The sadness for First Baptist families leaving the building that was so special to them. The resistance to change that is common among human beings. And the growing pains as the new combined church learned how to work together, respecting different ways. But overall, as we have heard, there was joy and energy and new possibility
that came from that courageous move. Here we are, 50 years later, facing the challenges of being the church today in 2024, in a time when fewer and fewer people claim a Christian faith. Our mission continues to be so important, and our community is so needed. We will have to be creative and courageous in our thinking as we listen for how God is calling us. I hope that our celebration of those who took bold steps 50 years ago inspires our own courageous and creative decisions and actions today. Let's continue to be faithful servants of God in the heart of the city, for the heart of the city. Thanks be to God.